94.5 FM at AM 770 News Radio KQOB. It's Brandon Vogt, and with us tonight, Warren Treadgold. His new book is The University We Need. Warren, thanks for being with us tonight.
It's a pleasure.
First off, tell me about your book and maybe your background as a professor.
Well, I've taught a number of places. I now teach at St. Louis University, but I've taught in the past at UCLA, Stanford, Berkeley, Hillsdale College, and Florida International University. And that's a pretty wide spectrum. My degree's from Harvard.
Mm-hmm.
So I have seen a good deal of the American university in my time. My own field is Byzantine history, which isn't a field you'd usually think associated with anything particularly political. But I've seen the university become more and more politicized and more left-wing.
Yeah.
Just about every single year since I got my degree in 1977, maybe even before that.
Wow. Was there a tipping point? Was there an era maybe that you saw a dramatic increase in these leftist ideas? It's
been steady, and I'm not sure. I think it is. There was a sort of tipping point maybe 5 to 10 years ago in which conservatives and moderates just about became invisible.
Mm-hmm.
They got so few because they hadn't been hired for so long, and they're all nearing retirement, as you can guess. Whether I'm nearing retirement or not, I'm getting to be the sort of age when many people retire.
Yeah.
And since there aren't any people to replace us, we're finding a situation in which there just aren't conservative and moderate voices on campus.
Yeah. Is it the fact that universities just won't hire people like that, or conservatives are not going into academia anymore?
Well, of course, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because when they see they won't get hired, they don't go into academia.
Yeah.
And then it's possible for the leftist types who are making the decisions to say, well, there aren't good candidates, and it's true there aren't as many good candidates as there used to be,
mm-hmm.
but the system is one in which, you go to graduate school and you discover such a hostile environment that a lot of people just say, even if I get a job, this isn't the sort of place I want to be.
Yeah. Warren Treadgold with us on News Radio KQOB. His new book available now is The University We Need. What are some of the issues that you address in this book?
Well, a series of things about academic hiring, which is part of it is that the job market has been so bad in academic sense. It collapsed in 1970, and it's gotten worse partly because universities are hiring these temporary adjunct professors who are just there for the term, and then come up for renewal maybe, but maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
And those aren't really the kinds of positions you can make a career out of, though some people sadly try.
That's what we're seeing here in New Mexico, Warren, is the university and a community college, they hire a lot of part-time people. And I think our community college here, I think 90% of the faculty is part-time. They just won't hire full-time people because there's enough folks out there that they can just that they can fill it by doing part-time and then not have to offer them any benefits and that sort of stuff.
Yes, it's terrible. When there are so few people being hired, there are so many applicants for every job, and you have some people who are determined to get the latest thing, the cutting edge, the most fashionable field, the hot new field. The hot new field is always something that's left-wing. It's postmodernist, it's diverse, it's inclusive, it's in social justice, and those people get almost all the jobs, and there aren't very many jobs.
Yeah. Warren Treadgold with us, his new book, The University We Need. What are some things that universities could implement to change this, and do they want to change? Because it seems like the people that are paying for it want to see some change.
I don't think they want to change. I mean, the people paying for it would like to see it change, but the administrators who are running it, well, another thing is, one reason there's no money for faculty is the administrators are multiplying and paying themselves better and better.
Yeah.
You're getting a situation in which we have almost as many administrators as we have full-time faculty in many universities. In some places, we actually have more. They're much better paid. And they are enforcing this ideology. They love things like centers for gender studies and ethnic studies and social justice and service and things like this. And that certainly is a big problem. But they don't want to change it. No, they think it's splendid.
Yeah.
And they like the fact that they can fire these adjunct professors and pay them nothing. And well, I mean, they do pay them something, but it's not nearly enough.
Yeah.
Now, should other people care? Yes, I think they should. That's why I wrote that book, the hope that some of them would.
Yeah. The book is The University We Need. Warren Treadgold with us on News Radio KKOB. And Warren, these universities have developed into large cities. Was that kind of the intent when these things started popping up at the turn of the century?
Well, I'm not sure that they intended them to be quite as large as they are now, but I don't think they'd be disappointed to see that that's what happened. We have a big demand for university education in America, and as a university professor, I don't mind that. If you have a university in a small town and the university grows huge, it's going to dominate the town. And so we have lots of college towns.
Have you faced any discrimination, I guess, in your tenure as a professor because of your conservative views?
I think that my career has not been as successful as it would have been if I hadn't eventually become known as a conservative. But there's something that's perhaps worse about it. My scholarship is not ideological at all. And you can see that if you read it. It's not conservative ideologically. It's not Marxist. It's not feminist. I just try to find out as much as I can about the subjects that I'm writing on, which are mostly the history and literature of the Byzantine Empire. And that's just not what people want anymore. And so I'm perhaps being discriminated against more as a somebody who has a conservative outlook on what scholars should do, rather than as somebody whose politics is conservative, which I think in many cases they didn't know, or at least I was able to hide until recently. Now I've given up and I've dropped the mask, and now they could find out.
Yeah. Warren Treadgold with us. The new book is The University We Need. And you mentioned some of these outlandish majors that people have now. There's whole departments on gender studies and that sort of thing. And it's really doing a disservice to the students, because you show up at a job interview with a women's studies degree, there's really nothing for you other than to teach it.
Well, that's right, but on the other hand, if you want to teach it and you want to make your career in a certain kind of, well, I mean, there are things like women's theater, you could also be an administrator. It's a women's studies degree would be very good for being a dean. That's the kind of thing that administrators like to hire for. So I'm not sure that it is necessarily a bad career move. It may be a bad career move if you want to go into business, though even so, if you want to be an affirmative action officer at a big business, a women's studies degree might just be what you want.
Mm-hmm. It seems like the universities and higher education is that the last bastion of liberalism that can't be touched. I mean, hopefully we can make some moves in it, but with politics, we can vote people out. There's movements for that. But as far as academics go, I mean, you think about these parents that are sending their kids off to school at these universities and all the stories that we're getting back from what's going on there. I mean, there's probably a lot of parents that are pretty trepidatious about sending their kids off.
Well, they're right to be. Now, there are a number, though not a very large number, of conservative colleges.
Yeah.
And yet, there are problems with those, two problems with those. First, if you have a degree from one of these places, say Hillsdale, Grove City, Christendom College, now, for many professions, it's just fine. But it's not the same thing as a degree from Harvard, Yale, Princeton, or Stanford.
Yeah.
And if you're really ambitious and you want to be influential, those aren't the places to get your degree from. And the other thing is that those places are just invisible to most of the American public and certainly in American education. That isn't where, when the television networks want to find an expert, they they get somebody from there and on the phone and talk to them.
Yeah.
And that isn't; those aren't the sorts of people who are shaping. Well, they're shaping at the universities. They're also shaping high schools and elementary schools and middle schools through schools of education. And so there's no place that is an influential non-leftist university. The closest I could actually come to it, and it's not close at all, is the University of Chicago, which is not quite as far gone as some others. But this is why I propose in this book that so many of the donors who right now are giving money to Harvard or Yale or Princeton or Stanford to have people there teach how enormously evil American capitalism is, should give their money to a new conservative and moderate university that wouldn't be like those, that really could compete with them.
And I'm starting to think about, the big state colleges and the big donors that pour money into the football and basketball programs. I wish these donors would pour money into more things like this for the university so there could be more conservative thought, or at least not as far left thought.
Well, I can see why they do what they do, because if they give the money to the kinds of administrations and the kinds of departments that these universities have got now, they'll just hire more people just like themselves, and maybe worse, because they'll be even more fashionable.
Yeah.
That's why I'd like to see them put their money in a new institution that could start from the ground up, because if you try to reform an existing one, you've got all those administrators, all those professors. The professors have tenure. The administrators won't budge. You can't get rid of them.
Yeah.
And there's just nothing to be done, really, except, there's just no way to make them hire people that they don't want.
Yeah. Warren Treadgold, his new book is The University We Need. Warren, thanks for being with us tonight.
It's my pleasure.
This is 94.5 FM at AM 770 News Radio, KQB.